All right, if you're in the accounting world, you absolutely know the feeling. That constant, crushing pressure of tax season, the late nights, the sense that you're just barely keeping your head above water. But what if I told you there's a completely different way to operate? Today, we're going to break down a huge strategic shift that's happening in CPA firms right now. It's about moving beyond just surviving tax season to actually thriving in it. So let's dive in and see how this evolution could totally reshape your firm.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the capacity trap that so many firms are stuck in. Then, we'll talk about why the usual fixes just aren't cutting it anymore. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how offshore support really works as a solution. We'll also cover the amazing strategic benefits, tackle the big nagging questions about quality, and then wrap it all up with a whole new way to think about your firm's future.
Let's just start with a really direct question, because this is where the pain point is. Does this sound familiar? A frantic cycle of overwork, then a short period of recovery, only to turn around and do the exact same thing next year? For way too many firms, that's just the accepted reality of doing business.
Now, that traditional all-in-house model, it feels safe, right? It feels like you're in control, but it comes with all these hidden costs that creep up on you. And I'm not just talking about overtime pay. I'm talking about the growth that grinds to a halt because you physically can't take on new clients, the team burnout that makes your best people walk out the door, the rushed reviews that inevitably lead to mistakes, and maybe worst of all, the massive strategic opportunities you miss because literally everyone is buried in prep work. And all that leads us to our first big idea, the in-house capacity trap. The reality is, tax returns are getting more and more complex, and at the same time, client expectations are going through the roof. That old model of just piling more work onto the same team, well, it's starting to crack under all that new pressure. So, what's the instinctive fix? What's the first thing everyone thinks of? Just hire more people, right? Well, a lot of firms are finding out the hard way that this seemingly simple solution has some really serious hidden flaws. Let's dig into why that is. Just think about this for a second. Finding good, experienced tax talent isn't a walk in the park. It can take months. And when you do find them, salaries and benefits costs are just going up and up. Then, once you've got someone, you have to train them, which pulls your senior staff away from their own important, high-value work. And on top of all that, your demand isn't even steady. It skyrockets during tax season and then plummets, leaving you totally overstaffed. It's a mess. So here's the bottom line. When you rely only on hiring, you're locking yourself into this painful, unsustainable cycle. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a problem that really needs surgery. It just doesn't fix the core issue of your capacity needs swinging so wildly.
And this is where we pivot to the actual solution. Let's talk about how offshore support really works. The absolute key here is to stop thinking of it as outsourcing a problem and start seeing it as strategically extending your team's capabilities. It's a huge mental shift.
So, let's be super clear about what we're talking about. At its core, this is about partnering up with skilled tax pros in other countries. They handle the heavy lifting of preparing returns and work papers, but, and this is the critical part, they do it all under your firm's direct guidance and within your existing review process. This slide is fantastic because it illustrates that division of labor perfectly. Look on the left, that's what your firm keeps total ownership of. The high-value stuff like client communication, the big-picture tax strategy, and of course the final review and sign-off. Then on the right, you see how the offshore team supports you by taking on all those time-intensive, standardized prep tasks. This frees up your in-house experts to focus where they create the most value for your clients.
But look, solving the capacity problem is really just the beginning. This model isn't about just plugging a hole in your schedule during busy season. It's about unlocking real, tangible, strategic advantages that can fundamentally change the way your entire firm operates for the better.
Okay, here's a benefit most firms don't even see coming: the time zone advantage. It's like a secret weapon. While your team in the US is logging off for the night, the offshore team can be just starting their day. Work doesn't just pile up overnight waiting for you, it actually moves forward while you sleep.
And what happens when your senior staff comes in the next morning to find a stack of returns already prepared? They get the time, and just as importantly, the mental space for what they're best at: a deep, thoughtful review. The quality of the final work often goes way up, simply because that crucial review process is no longer rushed.
So the overall effect is a firm that just runs smoother, with way less friction and a whole lot more focus. Your partners can actually get out there and build client relationships. Your managers can actually manage and mentor their teams. You're shifting all that energy away from the grind of preparation and towards strategic, growth-focused activities.
And that shift has a massive impact on your company culture.
When workloads finally become predictable and those endless late nights start to fade away, morale just soars. People feel supported, not like they're being stretched to their breaking point. And this leads directly to higher retention of your most experienced, most valuable people, which is a huge competitive advantage in today's market.
Okay, of course, the number one question we always hear is about quality, and you're right to ask it. But successful firms don't see quality as some emotional, uncontrollable thing. They approach it systematically. It's all about building a process that guarantees predictable, high-quality results. So let's tackle those common fears head-on.
This is probably the biggest fear out there, and it's totally understandable. I get it. You've built your firm's entire reputation on quality and being in control. The myth is that by handing off prep work, you're somehow giving up control over that final product.
But here's the reality. The offshore team operates completely within your firm's existing review and approval systems. You still set the standards, you still do the final check, you still sign off. The only thing that changes is your capacity. You don't lose control at all. You gain leverage.
All right, fear number 2 is all about what the clients will think. You worry they'll see this as you cutting corners, or they won't like the idea of their information being handled somewhere else. But let's take a step back and think about what our clients really care about.
The truth is, your clients care about results. That's it. They want accurate returns delivered on time by a team that's responsive to their needs. And when offshore support helps you improve on all 3 of those things, the client experience actually gets better, not worse. So here's the most important point of all. Success isn't about finding some magical offshore partner. It's about the processes that you build and you control. By documenting your steps clearly, standardizing your formats, defining crystal clear expectations, and setting up solid communication routines, just like you see here, you are the one who turns an offshore team into a seamless, high-quality extension of your own. So let's bring all this together. What we're talking about here isn't just a quick fix for busy season. It's a fundamental strategic choice about building a more modern, a more sustainable, and ultimately a more resilient firm for the future.
And this is the core idea I really want you to walk away with. You can keep treating your capacity crunch like a seasonal problem that you just have to suffer through every year. Or you can start seeing capacity for what it really is, a strategic variable that you can actively manage and control.
Which leaves us with one last kind of provocative thought. If you're truly ready to move your firm beyond just surviving tax season year after year, the question isn't really whether this model can work for you. The real question is, when you look at the true costs of burnout, turnover, and all those missed opportunities, how long can you afford not to?